Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sovereign Village Project. This is live stream number 2. We had a blast with the last one, and we're looking forward to kind of refining this one and improving it a little bit more every time as we go. We've got the video going on one of our phones, so I'm getting to hear myself speak right away. Gabby's here, Holly's here, ready to answer your dog questions. If you have any questions about gardening for dogs, Holly would be glad to help you out.
Her jobs mainly consist of digging and ruining everything that we plant.
Yes, but she also chews sticks into mulch, so she makes a valuable contribution. She makes a lot of fertilizer that takes a long time to compost, but she's very useful around the garden, of course. So we're trying to do this thing where we have a topic for every community hour that we do. Most of the time, we're just going to answer questions and just have a conversation as things pop up. But we kind of just want to start things with a topic of the day. Last time it was just introductions. That was the topic since it was our first one. So we figured we'd start just talking about the garden because that's really our main focus right now. It's this time of year. It's spring. We just hit the last frost date and we're just gardening like crazy. So we figured we'd just start talking about our garden and where we're at and what we're planting, what we're doing. And then as you get questions, just ask them. They can have nothing to do with gardening. We'll just answer questions as they come. Hopefully it'll get pretty busy in here. We did not put up the video until just now. With the live videos, you can put them up earlier and then people see that there's going to be a live. And so it might be a little bit of a slow start as people stream in. But I see we got at least one, so that's what matters. But let's just start talking about the garden. I wish we could do this live video in the garden.
Yeah.
We unfortunately don't have the internet connection for that. But if we could do it in the garden, that would be the best thing. But I did bring evidence of our garden. We're going to make that for dinner later, probably make some salmon. And we use the radishes and the radish greens in just about everything. And the garden is just booming. I'm going to do some more regular videos about that here coming up, but the garden has been going great. And I kind of just want to talk about my philosophy of gardening because I think so many people get so discouraged, especially new gardeners. They get into the space and get overwhelmed with the information and how they have to test their soil and remedy this deficiency and this thing and that thing. And we didn't test the soil here at all. We don't add any amendments except what comes out of my rabbit hutch. That's it. The only amendments that we have are what comes out of the rabbit hutch and the compost bin we make out of our mulch scraps and sticks and manure from the rabbit hutch and things like that. So we've just done nothing scientifically. Obviously the more knowledge you have, the better, but that can be so discouraging to a lot of new gardeners where if you just get in there and you start planting, of course, you're going to have a lot of failures, but for us, if we have a failure in the garden, seeds cost nothing.
Yeah.
So we just, if a couple weeks go by and they should have germinated and nothing happens, we just plant out another row of seeds. Now, that means it gets a little bit chaotic, but as you learn to recognize the leaves, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We just constantly have stuff growing and we don't worry about what's what. And so I might have some disorganization. The radishes might be right next to the lettuces and not in perfect rows, but it really helps us get to an abundant place quickly. We'll do more. I'll do videos specifically on that, but we just needed a topic to start out today with, and gardening was it. But it looks like we already have some comments and questions. New York Redneck, it was just you, but Conrad Homestead just joined us. I've been meaning to watch your live stream as well. Hopefully we'll catch that next time. Reliance and Trust made it. Good. We got our Oregon buddies. Conrad Homestead says we use a similar philosophy. I really think gardening, one thing that's really cool about it is that it can be specific to any personality type. If you're a very scientific kind of left brain person, you can do the hydroponic system. You can have the exact inputs of exact chemicals, or not chemicals, but exact components. Or you can be more of an artist like myself, where it's like, I'm chaotic. I'm that personality type. There is a garden for every personality type. And that's what I think is so fun about gardening, is it's so individual and there really are no rules. It's one of those things where you learn the rules so that you can break them.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm always trying to increase my knowledge. I want to learn more about soil science and all of that. But for me, I don't want to lose the joy in it either, and the randomness and the artistic expression and just kind of the not knowing, like, what's going to happen? Are these seeds going to come up or not? I don't know. When you let go of that attachment to everything too and don't care about failure, again, seeds cost nothing. And if you save them, they reproduce endlessly. We can't keep up with all of the seeds we have. So we just plant and plant and plant, and whatever happens, happens. And we just keep improving the soil. We're just piling on mulch, piling on compost, piling on manure constantly. So no matter what, everything just does better and better. As you can see, like, this is the result of our system. It's a good, healthy radish, very little insect damage. Sorry, blocking out Gabby's face there. And that's just without following any rules. So the anarchy applies to gardening too. Doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it, but that's the way we like to do it. New York Redneck says, weed is legal here now. I don't smoke, but I figured we'd grow it just for fun. Yeah, and it's good to grow for medicine too. CBD is a powerful, powerful medicine, and so is THC and the various other cannabinoids in there. You know, we have a system in our body designed to receive that, and we're only just now beginning to tap into what cannabis can do with diseases, because there's just now starting to be so much research done on that because of legalization. So that's an exciting space to be in, and it's exciting to watch that all develop. Dawsonville, Georgia is in the house. Mary, I think she just joined the Facebook group too, Sovereign Village Project.
Oh, cool.
We've not been active very much on that group, but I'm going to start getting more active on that. Plata says, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Mary's saying hi to Reliance on Trust. Reliance on Trust, again, another shout out. Last week for the live stream, you were answering so many questions in such great detail in the live stream, and that was great because I didn't get to a lot of the questions, and so check out his channel. He's a wealth of information. How are we doing on comments here? Still figuring out all the technology, but feel free to ask. We don't really have any questions yet, so if you have some, feel free to ask them.
You can talk a lot about maybe how we initially, when we started gardening, we were kind of put off by the whole like having to weed things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me talk about weeds.
And what we do about it now.
I have strong beliefs on weeds.
He does.
I love weeds. Let me talk about weeds and how much I love them and why. Number one, so many weeds are already edible, from dandelions to wild garlic and dead nettle. And they're not just edible, they're packed with so many more nutrients than our typical domesticated food. When I started eating dead nettle, my allergies went away. That's such a powerful antihistamine. And they're packed with so many crucial vitamins that we're really lacking in our diet. And the only reason we don't forage out of our yards anymore is just because it's so commonplace. We're not excited. Us humans, we like novelty. But I was thinking the other day, I was planting out chives. And as I was planting chives, I was like looking around and I'm like, I'm surrounded by wild garlic, which is essentially the same thing as a chive.
Yeah.
Does the same thing in a dish. Why am I planting what's already growing? So instead, now I've switched to just every time I see wild garlic growing or any other item that I like to forage, I actually am starting to farm the wild. I'm starting to add compost and add water to the wild plants. So when I see wild garlic, I grab a handful of compost and I stick it around the wild garlic. And then in a couple of weeks, that particular one is growing way taller than the other ones, and it tastes better, and it's probably more nutritious as well. That's something I'm going to keep exploring as a method. Hello, Holly. Which is kind of like a mixture between farming and foraging, because why not use what's abundant already and just enhance that? So number one thing about weeds is they're useful, and not just for eating, but many of them are useful for your animals. They're forage, or they will be doing things for your soil. A lot of them are dynamic accumulators. They're there for a reason. Your soil should never be bare. So if there's not a food plant growing, then you want a weed growing, because that's taking the sun's energy and it's shooting it right into the soil and building your soil life. So for me, I want those weeds growing anytime I'm not active. If I don't have a food plant growing in that space, then I encourage weeds. I want weeds to be there. They're very helpful. And then when the time comes to plant that spot, I just pull up the weed and I throw it back I throw everything, root and all, back into the soil, because it's a mulch. If some of it starts growing again, I'm not worried about it. I'm keeping my vegetable gardening in a small space anyway, so that I can actually maintain that properly. And the system gets under control as you do that. When you quit worrying about weeds and just use them as a tool, you pull them up, you drop them back down, you add mulch all the time, and when you see them, you don't stress out. You're just like, oh, that's an opportunity. That's another spot within my bed that I can plant more food, because we plant constantly. That's our method. We don't have like spring planting or fall planting. Every day we wake up and it's like, what? We ate 3 radishes today. You know, I went and picked this radish. So tomorrow morning I'll go out and I'll stick some more radish seeds right where that was. And really that can carry you through the winter in most climates. There are a lot of winter things. So like for me, my beds should be year round. Every day it should be the same routine. A few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes a day of just going out in the garden, cup of coffee, doing the simple things. And I think that's a key to like real big food production in a small space without a lot of know-how. Is just, instead of like getting overwhelmed and then spending hours slaving away, just 5 to 10 minutes of consistent time every day, making it part of your routine. Well,
because growing up, we both had, you know, it was our moms. My mom, she mainly did, flowers. She was very much an ornamental type of person. And I just remember being a kid and having to spend, a whole afternoon just in the sweaty sun and pull out all these weeds, and it's like it's not even the fun part of of gardening.
No.
And so I was always really turned off by that, but this method we do seems to really work, and it's fun. It doesn't take that long. It's not like a whole time consuming process.
It's a complete joy.
And it doesn't ruin our production.
And there's no part of gardening I dislike anymore. I like it. I love it all. I want to spend so much more time in the garden because it's all just a joy and it's easy. And I think gardening, a lot of it's so intangible. You just learn things by experience. Like, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out and read gardening books and learn the science. And, we're always trying to increase our knowledge.
It can be overwhelming too.
It can be so overwhelming, especially on YouTube. Go ahead and look up, like, what's the right way to plant tomatoes? You'll get 1,000 different answers. And for somebody who's new, you think, oh, like, you're just lost. You don't even know where to start. So just make mistakes and just I think that chaotic creativity is a good way to garden. It really works well for me and for Gabby.
The New York Redneck, he says, do you have any experience in air layering? He has just tried it with the mixture.
I do not. Yeah, I would love to learn more about that. If you don't mind typing up some more about air layering, I would love to learn more about that. It's an interesting concept.
And then Mary, she says that she believes we've been conditioned to look at weeds as a nuisance.
Yeah.
She's 55.
I think literally conditioned. Like, I'll put on my tinfoil hat and say that suburbia and the American lawn and this hatred of things like dandelions and stuff like that, it seems so absurd that it has to be intentional, that we've been propagandized, maybe just through advertising by chemical companies and stuff, to believe that a dandelion, a flower in your yard is bad.
Yeah.
Like, how psychotic and mentally damaged are we that we think we must have a monoculture, a robotic monoculture of only one arbitrary plant, only fescue, grass fescue, that's it. That's like OCD. That's like mental illness. Not to bash anybody with mental, but that's what that is. We need to break away from that absurdity. And it's all based on ego and keeping up with the Joneses. Every yard should be a cacophony of life. And it's so good to see people finally start to wake up to that. I just got served an ad on social media the other day for a grass replacement. So now it's not even enough for people to just grow grass and kill everything else and dump chemicals on it. Now you have to just do plastic, fake grass. AstroTurf that used to be for trailer parks, that's now apparently going mainstream in the suburbs. Extinguish all life. We can't even have grass. We just have to have concrete, dirt, and plastic. Anyway, I won't rant and rave about that. Stephanie had a question. Where did that go here?
Oh, when can she?
Oh, yeah. So Stephanie, you're over in Dixon County. We're next door neighbors.
Yeah.
Anytime, please hit me up. I need to get better about answering my emails, but do email me at sovereignvillageproject@gmail.com. I will go through that this week and answer all of those many backed up emails. Gabby's my organizer. She really helps me organize these things. So we're slowly, as this channel builds and as Finding Country keeps growing, we're keeping up with it and figuring out our systems and trying to stay more consistent with answering people's questions.
We've had people out to visit, and we love it. We love showing people
have
this area
every week now, and I'm also traveling out to see people and visit random people. And my gosh, I haven't had a bad experience yet. I can't encourage enough meeting random strangers from the internet. It's only been a positive experience. I mean, within reason. Anything else I'm missing here, Gabby?
DJ Lanning says that he has his first garden going. Said, but his woman wants nothing to do with it. There's a good question implied in there,
which is when you have a spouse who's not interested, or a person you're with. Obviously, it's not been a problem with Gabby and myself, but I think a lot of it is learning what another person. Same with a lot of people who are preppers have a problem with their partner not being on board with prepping, or homesteading even. And so that's a tough situation to be in. But I think a lot of that would be, I'm no relationship advisor, but a lot of that is you look at the love languages. I think that's a great concept to understand. Some people it's gift giving. Some people it's quality time. Some
words
people,
of affirmation.
Words of affirmation, physical touch. Whichever thing they like doing, you have to bring that into the experience. Mm-hmm. So if it's quality time, that's an easy one, because gardening or prepping or any of that it's all quality time. If it's physical touch, I don't know how you incorporate that one. Maybe give them a massage while they plant radish seeds. I don't know. But just finding a way to cater to their interests and say whatever, there's got to be some interest that could entice them into gardening or something like that.
Yeah.
And finding out what that
start
is.
small. Just
yeah.
Because I think I remember last year we were just trying all sorts of different things, like let's do canning and a garden and seed saving and
That's usually me that tries to tackle too much.
Yeah. So I was like, Matt, give me one thing.
Yeah.
Let me master one thing.
And that's been fun. For, like the whole gardening together as a couple is really fun because like I've learned so much about Gabby's skill set and personality and the things she's good at that I'm bad at and vice versa. You know, I'm terrible at organization. I'm the epitome of the chaotic musician artistic type. Gabby is like journalist, a little more academic and very organizing and good at organizing systems. And so it's a matter of like
blend the two.
So it's a matter of looking at your partner's, I think, their skill set and the things they value and seeing how they play into the system, and then just building a garden system around both of you.
We've got a question here. What is your approach to deer munching the garden?
Deer munching the garden? I will trade vegetables for protein any day. They are welcome. They can come in and take what they want. But no, realistically, I know that it can be too much sometimes. I feed the wildlife. You know, if the rabbits come into my garden, and if they're eating all my lettuce, then I just am not growing enough lettuce. Yeah. Because populations do stabilize. If you don't fight insects, if you don't fight the wildlife, if you let them in, then the predators will come in as well. Now, of course, predators, when it comes to deer and rabbits and stuff, we've killed off most of those predators. So we have to assume that role of being the predator. Within reason, and we have to cull the herds. You know, we have too many deer in most places, and so that's of course opportunity. You know, deer is food. Now, if you're in the suburbs, that may be a little bit trickier to make happen. But for us on our property, on the 5-acre side, we're designing for the deer. We're farming the deer. The deer are part of our system. We're gonna feed them. But some of the systems I use to make sure they're not getting my fruit trees and stuff. With fruit trees, I'll often place sticks, dead sticks, like branches that are all spindly. I'll place them over the plant, and the deer just can't get their face in there easily. If they really wanted to, they could, but there's so many other things for them to eat. You might consider growing things for the deer on perimeters and then making barriers. Yeah. So we're doing like a death hedge. We got the idea from David the Good, and it'll be deer friendly on the outside, but then very thorny and hard for them to get through.
Yeah, someone mentioned bone sauce, and I know
bone sauce.
Billy,
yes.
He has a lot of good videos.
Billy at Perma Pastures Farm. Watch his bone sauce.
We've never
videos.
made it, but he has, and we've seen it.
And we've seen his system, and he's got nothing but good things to say. And he's a guy I trust a lot. He really knows his stuff, and he's got a specific recipe on how to do that. And he's completely stopped his deer browse completely. For me, I'll allow some of it because our property is set up that we can hunt deer. So I will gladly give some of my garden for some of that delicious venison.
Someone said, Conrad Homestead said, can you talk about your permaculture design knowledge?
Yes. Although I do want to just go back to the deer thing. I just thought of another channel. He's not on here, but Edible Acres has a lot of deer videos. And I love Edible Acres channel because his stuff is kind of like mine where it's like not money fixes. It's not technical. It's like, here's a general concept that you can do with anything.
Yeah.
He's very much on a shoestring budget, and he's got a lot of deer and rabbit.
Big operation too, though. Like trees.
Yeah, a wealth of information, especially when it comes to perennials. I'm learning a lot from him. Now, what was that question again?
Can you talk about your permaculture design knowledge?
Mm-hmm. So I just finished my first permaculture course not too long ago. I did that over the slowest part of the pandemic, and took the one that was on Udemy, and it was an old compilation of Bill Mollison and what's his name? Jeff Lawton of their early classes. I actually did not love the course the way it was structured. Jeff Lawton is a phenomenal teacher. If you've watched Bill Mollison is a visionary and a brilliant guy, but like trying to follow his stuff sometimes. And it wasn't the most cohesive course. There are Jeff Lawton's own courses are great, and then there's other courses that feature both of them that are better done than that one. So I wouldn't per se recommend the Udemy course. I'm going to take another course. I'd like to do an in-person one. I'm budgeting for that and just trying to decide which one I want to take. But Gabby and I both have kind of agreed that every year we're going to allow for one major educational expense each for the rest of our lives, or a couple. Like next year, we'll probably I have to take a first responder course for the fire department. Yeah. That'll be a big time commitment. But then I want to also do a permaculture course. So I'm always seeking to expand my knowledge. But also, I mean, YouTube is just such a resource. When you find a channel that you vibe with and they really seem to know what they're doing and they have the results to show it, you'll learn just as much from them as you will from an organized course.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as we all know, hands-on, there's nothing that compares to that. We won't talk too much about it yet, but we're working on addressing some of the hands-on stuff and working on some events to where we can start bringing people out and and really show how to do things hands-on, because I've learned so much.
It's just something you have to experience. And
because there's so many times where I've watched videos or I've taken courses on something over and over again, and I sort of got it, but then when I went and did it hands-on, like it totally, then you just remember it. Like talk about Billy from Perma Pastures, we went up to his homestead.
Oh yeah. Nice.
And we did a little chicken slaughtering when I was a kid, but not much. I didn't remember much, and I'd watched videos on it. But when we went there and we did it and had him show us, it stuck with me. And the other day I helped another family nearby learn how to slaughter their chickens, and it sticks with you when you do it hands-on. So that's been a big part of my education. And then a lot of my education comes or my views on permaculture and design come from just a kind of a lifetime growing up I grew up in Oregon for the most part, in an area that was small market farming. A lot of berry, a lot of perennial agriculture, a lot of tree-based agriculture, agroforestry, Christmas trees, a lot of orchards. And my whole childhood, I worked at, like, my first job was at the age of 12, working in a berry field all day long, like 10-hour days, a 12-year-old picking buckets of berries. That was my introduction to farming and to work. And so I spent a lot of time and I got to experience all of these different fields within agriculture. None of them were really permaculture, but I still learned a lot intuitively. So that's been very helpful to my education and growing up on a farm. Ours was kind of the typical homestead where it wasn't that organized or efficient, but we were still fairly self-sufficient. So hopefully that answers that. Basically, I guess the answer is I've been gaining my knowledge from a wide variety of sources, and I intend to do so until I die. I'm going to just keep educating myself. I love gaining new knowledge.
We buy books all the time.
Yeah, we just bought like 3 books. We got what did we get? We got Kick the Hay Habit.
Kick the Hay Habit, Gaia's Garden.
Let's see if I can find a cool book here. I think I have a Ruth Staff somewhere.
We're looking into homeschooling stuff too, so there was a good book written recently about that I've been kind of diving into. Oh, we've got Ruth Stouts.
Yeah,
that's one we recommend a lot.
I scored on this one. This is Ruth Stouts. This is one of the things that really got me started. I found this in a free box, actually. Ruth Stout is just such a character. She's one of those old ladies that was she was one of those ladies that during the Prohibition went into taverns with an axe and broke up the tavern. So picture that personality type writing a book about gardening. Phenomenal. She was like really one of the innovators on bringing back the mulching system into Western culture. And her method was just simply piling hay on top of her garden. And all of the scientists and government scientists and agricultural extension people would come out to her place and tell her it wouldn't work. And of course, she proved them all wrong. And she was no scientist. She was just a lifelong gardener. And she really got everybody else started on the mulching methods. And of course, there's a million ways of doing that. There's the Back to Eden method and all of that. But that's a garden. The Ruth Stouts No Work Garden book. That's a great one.
It's a good one.
But so it's just, we're always educating ourselves and enjoying it. Like for our downtime, when we want to watch TV, we go on YouTube and we watch gardening videos. Some of them might be real practical, hands-on. Or if we really just want to relax and kind of go to sleep, we'll watch maybe just a more inspiring video about permaculture, and still learn a little bit.
Tour of something.
Happen Films has some great videos. Happens Films.
I think it's Happen.
Happen Films has some great permaculture farm tours, and they just do a great job with their production. All right, I feel like I'm probably behind on questions now. Stephanie says her whole 2 acres is completely wild with loads of edibles. I'm blown away constantly. The more I learn about foraging, the more I realize that foraging is not, we think of just like a little side thing you do for fun, but I think it can be sustainably done and be a major part of your diet, especially if you have a large yard area. There's so many things like plantain and dandelion and wild garlic. Of course, this varies by climate, but there's so many edibles that come up, especially in a flat, like when all that light is getting into a yard area. There's tons of edibles there, and you can kind of feel free to forage pretty freely from a yard because it's not a natural ecosystem anyway. You're not damaging anything, but you can also feed that system like I was talking about. You can start dumping compost and manure around the plants you want to keep and start favoring them. I'll dig dandelions and plantain out of one spot, like below a septic field, and I'll move it to where I want it. My neighbors probably think I'm crazy, and they have good reason to, but foraging, I think, should be a major part of your food. Reliance on Trust says air layering is apparently when you propagate a hardwood cutting by slicing the branch and attaching soil to the branch while it is still attached to the main plant. That's interesting. I want to try that. That sounds like a lot of fun. DJ Lanning, hello. Oh, we already read that one. I'm way behind here. Sorry if I'm saying your channel name wrong. Platus. If the grass is greener, it's probably fake. Yeah. We're in the AstroTurf generation. Reliance on Trust says love languages are major. Yeah, I think they're a major part of everything. Actually, business. I take that into account when I do business. Like, what's this person's love language and how are they trying to express it? Because that's part of cooperation and it's part of building community too. Is recognizing the people. Love languages are kind of like values. They're totally subjective, and like if you don't get on board with how somebody else is, that's how you get problems in relationships. Yeah. It's like somebody is trying to express their love or compassion or whatever they're trying to express through gift giving, and you don't care about gifts. You want quality time, and that's where a lot of sorry, Holly. That's where a lot of problems in communities come from too. Is that so? Understanding the love languages is very useful. Bone sauce. Yeah, DJ Lanning, bone sauce. That's if you go over to Perma Pastures Farm, their
that's
channel.
Where he learned it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I'm way behind. Dog presence and poop is a deer deterrent. Yes, Holly's job here. You can't see her; she's down here. But Holly's job is to keep predators away. Right now, we're trying to keep her from being the predator when it comes to chickens and all of that. We'll see if we can train her correctly. But yeah, dogs are a major part of the farm ecosystem. They're a necessary, crucial part for so many reasons. Predator control, security. They can keep not just predators, but like mice populations down, things like that. Of course, there are different breeds, livestock guardian dogs, shepherds like Holly. There are a lot of different breeds of dogs to do different purposes. Dogs are, they came up alongside of humans, and they are designed to be our partners. They're designed to be our partners in the forest and in the garden and in the home, and to keep us safe. Like, they're an amazing animal and a crucial part of any system. Reliance and Trust is talking about using blood meal as a fertilizer. Somebody was just telling us about how they plant their grapes with blood from when they slaughter rabbits, and they say their grapes do phenomenal. So we're going to try that experiment. Reliance on Trust also says the Hopi people of Arizona use dog dung as a deterrent. Holly's dog dung definitely deters me. So we have no shortage. That is a resource we have in abundance. I like gardening with Leon. Tried the wicking buckets. Oh yeah, I think I've seen that about the wicking buckets. And that's things like wicking, like there's so many random weird techniques out there, and just different ones are going to resonate with you and not with other people. There's just so many fun things you can do. And like, again, like if you could be a really left brain person, maybe hydroponic gardening is the way to go. Maybe if you watch Jack Spirko's videos, he likes aquaponics. He really likes not gadgets, but he likes infrastructure. Systems, yeah. I hate infrastructure. I don't like to build stuff. I just want to I want my farm to look basically much as like a forest as it possibly can. Yeah. And so, but there's no right or wrong when it comes to that. That's just, it's completely subjective. Oh, Conrad Homestead says hitting the thumbs up encourages YouTube to promote this live stream. That's very true. I always forget about those things, but yeah, hitting a thumbs up, it puts it up in the algorithm, and we're always fighting the algorithm here, just trying to get these ideas out to the larger world. And yeah, that's very useful to us, liking it. Reliance on the topic of homeschooling. Yeah, let's talk about homeschooling. Let's talk a lot about homeschooling. Gabby and I do not have a child, but we may at some point, and homeschooling is certainly the way. There's no way in hell that I would put a kid into a public school at this point. They're disaster. Now, Gabby was public school. There have been good public schools. I'm not so sure there are anymore, except for a few pockets. They're Marxist indoctrination centers, and they're governed at the federal level. The idea of public schooling, when it was started, it was the community got together and they built a school and they hired a teacher, and the parents knew what that teacher was teaching, and they had that teacher over for dinner. They knew that person intimately. We got away from that, and it all got federalized, and we let it get federalized, and the result is complete destruction of education and the complete collapse of our civilization, really, because people can't critically think. They've been trained not to critically think. And I mean, academia has been completely destroyed by the far left. Not that I get into like left-right politics so much, but that's what happened is the left has fought the soft war by taking over academia, and they've been very successful. So if we value liberty or just like not letting our children be destroyed, it's time for us we don't even need to take over education. We can let them have that. They can have their public schools. We just need to build our own schools. Yeah. And go back to, and homeschooling doesn't have to be an isolated experience. I grew up in a homeschooling co-op. any church building or community center, and like we've talked about in other videos, as you kind of identify what you want to be your community center in your community, just find somewhere where you can have classes. You could start with a little class. Gabby is talking about teaching health classes. I teach music classes, but eventually we can evolve that upwards into a full homeschool group with, a dozen families all pooling resources. And the homeschool co-op I grew up in was we didn't hire any outside teachers, though you can do that. You can, like, if there's no one in the group who's good at teaching math, you just pull your resource and you hire a math teacher to come in. But we actually had enough moms within the group who had specific training. One was specifically a biologist. One of the moms was. So she taught all of the science, all of the biology classes. My mom ran a business and a store, and so she taught a lot of like business related stuff. And geography was always an interest of hers. So with a small group, you're gonna probably have enough knowledge to teach really well. And like, I was homeschooled kind of haphazardly. My mom was really intense about it first, but then she started running the home business, which was we owned a country store, and she got so overwhelmed with it. By the time I was about probably 11 years old, it was total anarchy in terms of my education. But I was also taught to understand that like my success depended on me. So I just kept educating myself because I didn't want to be dumb. And you were
just an avid reader, always had like books in the house.
Yeah. And that was another thing, is we didn't have TV everywhere. We were surrounded by books. So you get bored, you're going to have to read books.
Yeah.
I read encyclopedias for fun. So a part of it is, I think, setting up an ecosystem to
that environment,
the right environment to encourage learning. For us, we've talked about like no book or any form of media will cross our threshold until we've vetted it. I'm not having other people's values raising my children. That's what we've allowed to happen. People are here worrying about little Nas and his Satan shoes. Like, maybe don't let your 6-year-old listen to the satanic cowboy guy.
Yeah.
Like don't. Or the same with the Miley Cyrus thing. Like, yeah, of course she's corrupting your daughters. Like, that's her job. Like, anyway, like, so take ownership over the media in your house, or the entertainment. And like, I know why people do it. It's because they don't have time to raise their kids because they're in the matrix system. They're so burdened with work and trying to survive. That's why we have to walk away and we have to become financially independent and take back our time. And that's hard. Gabby and I are trying to do that now.
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out.
But we have the benefit of being able to do that when it's just us, so that ideally we can have our business systems up and running, in a few years.
Reliance on Trust says mixed age schooling is excellent too. It helps create peer teaching, and everybody, you probably experienced that because he has a lot of siblings. And
when you're in a mixed age schooling group, the older kids, you give them responsibilities and it totally changes their life. Suddenly they're not there because like in a school, everyone's there to just like goof off and they don't give a crap about it because, you're just there to goof off with your friends. But suddenly if you're responsible for the younger age group, and if you give a 15-year-old, say, hey, can you teach basic math to these little kids? They will be flattered and they will apply themselves and they will learn while doing so. And when you teach, you learn how to learn. So mixed age groups, I think, is a very good idea. Obviously being careful, like if 17-year-olds are around 12-year-olds, there should be some supervision and things like that. But mixed age schooling, I think, is the way it's. If you look back at the writings of anybody from like colonial America era or Victoria, like these older eras when things were mostly one-room schoolhouses, everybody was really well spoken. Compare that to today, like we can barely form coherent sentences anymore. We can't. Go ahead and look at Facebook. Look at, obviously the YouTube comments here are a much higher caliber, but look at your average comment. Like, people can't spell.
Yeah.
They can't talk. They can't think. Yeah. Schooling is a disaster. Education is a disaster.
Well, because you're taught, like,
just take it back.
Yeah, because my one big kind of pet peeve with, now that I'm kind of removed from the educational system is I kind of realized, the way I was taught was to just fill in the blanks, just to like know information for a brief period of time. And then it just all goes away because you're not actually learning it. And I just told Matt, I don't want, I want kids to like remember substance and learn something once and really.
That's what all education is. Formal education is just like, let's cram a bunch of terminology you will not remember. Because I love to learn and I hate academia. I hated college. When I was in the Army, to me that stood out as like the worst way to educate people. It was exactly like academia. They cram knowledge into your head, cram the skills in your head. The only thing they do right is they do so much rote that a lot of the hands-on stuff comes back and there's more hands-on learning. But it's in every formal education from there to college to I did do some public schooling, and almost all of it was just done terribly. And just it's not the way humans are made to learn. Children, their brains are literally designed to learn. So if they're not learning, then it's because we're failing to set the conditions correctly. The unschooling movement is like, I was unintentionally unschooled, and it worked out really well for me. When I got to college, it was like I was really worried about it because I didn't technically even graduate high school. My mom just like wrote up a diploma, I was pretty much on my own from 11 or 12 years old. But I'm not that I didn't. All of the books were there, and I was still in the homeschool co-op. But it was pretty anarchic as far as education goes. And I got there, and I was well above my average peer, well above. So like if homeschooling done wrong can work out well for me, just imagine, like, first of all, you have nothing to fear if you're a parent wondering if you should homeschool. You're not going to mess it up. Just do it. You'll be fine. And you'll probably do a lot better than you think. And there's so many resources out there. Like somebody mentioned a specific
screenshot. I took a screenshot of that.
classes for homeschooling. Check out the Trivium or Quadrivium classical education. Yeah, I don't know anything about those, but we'll look into those. And there's so many resources out there. That's something we're working on too. In some of our long-term goals is making more open source educational resources for permaculture, for self-sufficiency, foraging, gardening, and then eventually even like homeschool curriculum. Conrad Homestead says, funny to hear you say that you relocate dandelions. Yeah, I love dandelions. You can eat the flower, you can eat the root, you can eat the leaves. I put them in everything, and they're packed full of vitamin A, vitamin K. In these times, you need all the vitamins you need. You need to be building that immune system, because regardless of what this virus is or isn't, it seems like what they've intentionally done is destroy the entire planet's immune system. They made everyone lose their jobs, told them all to stay indoors, shot their health to crap. Everybody gained weight. Everyone ate crap food, shut down their access to most food variety. Most of the good restaurants got closed down. They did every possible thing they could do.
All the fast food restaurants stayed open.
Yeah. So basically, everything they could have done to destroy people's immune systems has been done now. You got a bunch of poor, broke, in most parts of the world, starving people, still growing the population, still pushing into wild areas, into new zoonotic diseases. But now, no immune system. The social fabric of people is disintegrating. Like, we seem, to me, to be primed for an actual pandemic at this point. But pandemics aren't a concern if you have a healthy immune system, because they're good. Viruses are good. You're supposed to have viruses. They're part of nature. At least some of them are. But normal viruses are a part of nature. And like, there's a rabbit virus going around, and I want my rabbits to get it. I can't wait. When it comes to Tennessee, I'm just going to build up my rabbit herd, and I will feed them as healthily as I can with as much variety. And I'll let the disease go through, and whatever survives, well, now I have the resistant.
Super rabbit.
Yeah, I have a super rabbit. I have the breed that is resistant now. And that's money in the bank right there. So that's our approach with ourselves too. Is just, and foraging is the way you get so many vitamins that are not, even gardening doesn't compare to, like, yeah, it's way more nutritious to grow your food, especially if you're building soil. But foraging, you look at the vitamin content in a lot of things like dandelion greens, it's just through the roof. Conrad Homestead says, thanks for sharing information freely. Yeah, that's what we all need to be doing. To me, it's a race. It's a race to self-sufficiency, and we all need to be working together. And that's, for all of the flaws and the censorship on YouTube, that's the beauty of this platform, is that what a community where we can all get together and just share ideas. I've learned way more from this channel than I've
any other
shared
social media.
Because like, I'm really not an expert on anything. I just have a camera phone, just so everybody knows. I'm trying to become an expert in specific fields within the self-sufficiency space, but I'm just pointing the camera at myself and talking. That's the whole theme of this channel. Conrad Hempstead, do you know of a meeting called Free Share in Tennessee? I do not. I would love to know more about that, though. Meetings and festivals and getting together, that's what we're really working on this next year, is like taking this outside of the YouTube space into the reality space. Because every time I've met somebody through this channel, it's been like, it's like we've found it's like we've never actually had friends before until we started this channel. Because then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. There's actually like-minded people. We literally did make
friends here who moved literally like 45 minutes away.
Chris and Yona are probably on here.
Yeah, so it's great. Best thing.
And that's like, for all the scariness of these times and the tyranny that's coming and the collapse that we're in the midst of, this has been the most meaningful, fun year of my life. The most stressful by far, but also like so much meaning when you shift into like when you have a real goal of self-sufficiency and building community. Every day you wake up with purpose and meaning, and it's an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just getting better and better. So there's a lot of positive side to everything that's happening now. I won't get too cosmic with this, but it seems like we're in this cycle of history where it's kind of like the biblical apocalypse, either literally or metaphorically. Who knows? But like, I think part of that process, and other religions and historical accounts have this kind of same thing where debauchery and totalitarianism grows, just like ancient Rome, and the cities get bigger, the totalitarian control over people gets worse and worse. Things just become more and more, debauched, basically. And as that starts to occur, collapse of that civilization is generally what's around the corner. But at the same time, that's what also sets the good people apart, is they're withdrawing from that system. They're saying no, they don't want any part of it. And that's really when the Christian church was founded, was like during that period, the decline of Rome, basically. And I think we're in a time where those of us who are withdrawing from the system are going to build something incredible. I think it's going to be hard, and we're going to be very persecuted. But I think I was talking to an old hippie guy, old back to the land hippie guy out here in Tennessee. He's a weed grower out there, and just one of the original guys from the hippie movement. And he was talking about how he believed, he's kind of a new age guy. He believed that there was a shift in consciousness. And that sounds all hippie-ish, but then you think about it, it's like there is a shift in consciousness. It's us realizing that, nobody can fix our communities or our lives but us.
Yeah.
We need to do it, and we need to go out every day, wake up with the intention of making our community a better place, making that neighbor's life better, that neighbor's life better, that neighbor's life better. We need to address poverty. We need to address obesity and drug use and crime. We need to stop looking, because when we look to any other exterior source like government, that's when the tyranny and the problems start, is because we implicitly agree for somebody else to be hurt. Instead of me approaching my neighbor if his drug problem's out of hand, we instead just make a drug law, and then we go out and we throw millions of black men into prisons, into slave labor, essentially, because we had a problem with the plant. Like, that's not right. Our acceptance of the very concept of governance is morally reprehensible, and we need to awaken to that you can never use force to take anybody's money or resources. You can't do that. That's not good ever. There's no scenario in which it's good.
Yeah.
And government doesn't exist without force. Because you know what you call a government like that doesn't use force to take money? You call them a church or a nonprofit. Like that. The only thing that sets government apart from a corporation or any other entity is the use of violence.
Yeah.
So part of this awakening is seeing that we cannot engage in that, but we also have to be the answer. You can't be an anarchist unless you're willing to step up and start to build the solutions. It's a good question. Who is going to build the roads? Who is going to educate the people? Who's going to feed the poor? Like us. It's us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's cosmic enough, I think, for this live stream. One of these days, we just need a day where we set aside one to get really weird and get into philosophy and religion.
I was just about to throw in something I learned from that podcast today, but I was just gonna say, we started a podcast today, and it's these two guys that kind of go through the Bible from an Eastern perspective.
Like a Jewish perspective.
A Jewish perspective.
I think the one guy's a rabbi.
Yeah, I think he is. But he was talking today about how a lot of people from Western culture, when he talks about eternal life, he talks about it in the present tense, and no one understands, because in our concept of God and eternal life, we think it's like something we get after this life. And he says that, in the Eastern kind of philosophy of it, it's eternal life is now. Eternal life can be found in any life, but it's your quality of life. And it really made me think, just about all the things we're doing with homesteading and gardening. And to me, that's what kind of eternal life is. Like, that's what we're creating while we're doing this. It
seems like there's really only two philosophies. There's only two ideologies. There's life and anti-life. And like, you look at the side who is against us, who's against people who are trying to just be self-sufficient, just live their lives and to be good to the land, and you look at the machine and this beast system that's developing, and everything about it is anti-life. Like even their environmental agenda, because they don't actually care about the environment. They're the despoilers of the environment, but they're anti-carbon. Carbon is life. We're carbon. So there's a deep philosophical thing there where it's like they're saying life is bad. And all of their solutions are like, let's build these giant inner city vertical farms. Let's more machinery, more pavement, more concrete, more skyscrapers, more sustainable development, which is just more packed ghettos. Like, go into the city and look for life. There's very little. Like, how much life is there on a square acre in the middle of the city compared to out here? So, like, anyway, enough down the philosophical rabbit hole. We definitely needed like a rabbit hole Thursday or something like that, where we can just do another live stream and just like get really out there, because I have fun with that stuff.
Most of our conversations.
This is what we do. This is our entertainment. Is like we get
each other's brains.
And get weird with it.
And get weird.
By the way, in case anybody's wondering what we're drinking tonight we are not doing wine. This is what is it? A fruit juice.
It's a sparkling juice.
Yeah, I'm excited for this year. We're gonna start doing more of our own beverages. And of course, I'll do videos about all of them. I'm thinking about a distilling series. Let me know what you think of that.
Noah says, any advice on finding bare root trees suited to a particular environment?
Kill lots of trees. Get lots of course, order from around you. But just kill, like, I way overwhelmed myself. Outside of this porch, you probably saw it when it was light, there are piles and piles of fruit trees. And I've killed some of them. I paid, and it cost me a lot extra money because they're not all surviving. But I'm just buying the widest variety of trees that seem like they're going to do okay. Obviously, I'm not buying tropical trees that won't do well in my zone, but anything that works in this growing zone, I'm planting. And I'm planting multiple. I don't order less than 3 of any tree if I can avoid it. That way 1 can still fail and 2 can still pollinate. But if I can, I get 4 or 5 and 6. You know, I get as many and the widest variety of trees I can possibly find, and just plant them out, try to make the conditions right for their survival, and then just see what works. We're in a place in time where we can pioneer perennial agriculture in horticulture, because we do have an advantage of a globalized economy for a little longer. And so there are so many Asian varieties of edible plants and African ones. I'm experimenting a lot with Asian greens and things like that, because a lot of them don't have natural predators. So I would say just bring in as much stuff to your property as you can, plant it out, see what works, see what doesn't. You might also, as you learn to take cuttings, once you learn to do that, if you're on a community page on Facebook or in any kind of group where you can talk to people, put it out there, say, hey, who's got granny's old apple tree on their property that's producing? I want to preserve species. And people respond well to that stuff. Say, like, I'll come to your property, take some cuttings, then I'll give some of them back to you after I propagate them. So maybe this next spring, try to make sure you have a good mini greenhouse set up or something, or good windows, and learn to propagate, and just go out and start saving genetics and start your own genetics too. You know, you can throw an apple seed in the ground. You don't know what it's going to be. They're never the same. You get your own species of apple, and some of them will be good, some of them won't. So it's an adventure, and that may not be the answer you're looking for, because it's not. I didn't really outline a method of finding, but my answer is really just plant every tree you can get your hands on. If you're working with a really small space, that's different. So then I would say just talk to local growers, talk to nursery people. If you find an independent nursery, they're generally going to grow what works well. There's one here, I think it's called Hidden Springs Nursery. It's about 2 hours from me. And they grow a lot of things I had never heard of. And they also grow a lot of things that are really standard here, like mulberry. And there's just specific things that do well. Also, talk to old gardeners. Anybody that has white hair that gardens, you need to spend as much time with them as possible, because they know stuff. Reliance and Trust is talking about no parental consent, fluoride tablets every morning. Yeah,
I remember I had to take fluoride when I was in like 3rd.
Thank God I had a conspiracy theory mom that was just against that stuff. Because
I remember having to take it like every morning
and what else are they doing to your kids? House. You don't know what medicines they're shoving down their throats, what propaganda. Like, my gosh, there's no good reason to give your children to the state. Don't give your kids to the state. The state's not on your side. Yeah, Reliance Trust says, let me put on the tinfoil hat for a second and insinuate that maybe these schools are meant to suppress learning. Absolutely. What other conclusion can you draw? We could bring up numbers and research and metrics and show the destruction of education in America, and it goes right back to the federalization of education. Yeah. Nothing centrally managed works. There's no conspiracy theory there. We just know that centrally managed things don't work. And boy, does that really apply to education. When you destroy education,
it's possible that things get too big.
Yeah,
I think
that's a going back to trippy metaphorical stuff. That's a pattern in civilization. You look back in history, like the story of what's his name that flew too close to the sun?
Oh, Hermes.
Yeah, Greek fella. That was metaphorical. It was a Tower of Babel story. You're building and building something big, and you think you're gonna humanity will never let go of this concept, or it'll be a long time before we realize that we are not God. We keep trying to be gods, and every time we fly too close to the sun and we build the tower, and it always comes collapsing down. And to me, it seems like that's the stage we're in.
Yeah.
It seems like you can look back, and the Hindus have the same stories. The Vikings had the same stories. The Christianity has the same stories. It's all the same. The ancient Egyptians. Some of it's metaphorical and some of it's literal. I kind of buy into the theory of cyclical nature of the world and of the universe. And it seems like we're at that point, like, because we're about as big as you can get. And that doesn't mean that tomorrow everything's going to collapse, but it seems like we're in a decline now. It seems like last year was
you just see the symptoms of things getting too big.
And in what scenario does everything get better? Like, at what point how is social cohesion going to ever come back? I'm never going to accept government again. This was too eye-opening for me this last year. I will never be a functioning member of society. I'll be a functioning member of my society, of my community out here.
Larger.
Yeah. I'm not going to support government. I'm not going to fill out censuses. I'm not going to send my money to genocidal criminal organizations. I'm not doing any of that. So it's almost like I'm prepping for collapse, because don't want to say I'm advocating for it, but I'm not opposed. Like, I mean, obviously it's going to be more ugly than we can imagine. It already is. We're seeing the devastating impacts of on this thing. We hear so much tragedy and heartbreak through this. It's for the local fire department. This is the radio. And this small community, every day there's overdoses. Every day there's death.
There are 2 just this morning.
And they're spiking.
Within an hour.
They're spiking, crime going up. And it's across the board, across the globe, because we got as big as we could get. Resources are going down. Population isn't going down yet. And
like, you used to, in a small community, if you had someone that was dragging or not, not doing well, the community would lift that person up. That doesn't happen anymore, because we think, well, the government will do that.
Exactly.
I don't need to do it.
We've turned that over. And that's part of this awakening, this change in consciousness. We need to say, no, it is us. We are responsible. Especially if you come from a Christian tradition.
Let's just pay more taxes and throw money at it.
And nobody ever signs up to pay more taxes. It's always, let's make somebody else pay more taxes. And that's what's so morally reprehensible about government. It's never like, how can I help? It's like, how can I point a gun at somebody, take their money to help this other guy so that I feel like I helped? You didn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Night Owl's doing their chores as they listen and says, well, I want to say that you two are great. Thank you. Appreciate that, Night Owl. No, you're great.
We needed the confidence boost.
We'll take all the compliments we can get. Oh boy, we only have like 8 minutes left if we're going to keep this to an hour. Night Owl says, please go cosmic. Yeah. I think we actually need to do this. We need to set aside.
We've talked about it.
We need like a normie live stream, and then so we might not host it on YouTube. We're trying to expand our brands in different directions, and we have Finding Country, which Gabby is heading up.
Publication.
And we're talking about a podcast, and so we might just have a podcast where we just sit there, pour a little bourbon or moonshine or something, and just really go to town on philosophy and religion and just get tripped out of it.
Yeah, government, whatever.
Yeah. Reliance on Trust said, I never would have made this channel if not for COVID.
Same. Yeah.
Same, yeah. My life has changed so much for the better because of all of this. Like I'm as much as I see the intentionality and the nefarious purposes behind all of this, I'm happy for it. I'm happy for where civilization is going. I'm happy to be born in this time. I'm excited for the future. It's going to be hard. It's going to be rough. It's going to be full of sorrow, but it's also full of meaning and excitement, and we're building things. We're getting to we're building this new community around us and learning how to do it. And then we're watching other people do the same, and we're making such incredible connections with people. To wake up every morning with just a purpose and a drive it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying life because of everything that's happening. Reliance Trust is apocalypse. Apocalypse is Greek for revelation. Mm-hmm. Apocalypse was never an end of a story. It was the end of one period and the start of another. That's what we're in. And I'm while it's going to be scary, the ending part, the beginning of a new era is very exciting. We're already in it. I don't think there's a clear-cut transition. You just decide, am I going to be in the part of society that's dying, or am I going to go to the part of society that's growing and the new movement and the life that's
like
emerging?
Kind of like the eternal life thing. That's what it makes
it's
me
a pattern.
About, is it's like, what are you choosing? Because that's what eternal life is. It's what you're choosing.
Mm-hmm.
What you're choosing.
And it seems like the inherent theme of this COVID thing, and of people like saying, shoot me up, put whatever in my body, make me do whatever you want, I will do it because I'm so scared to die. It seems like humanity is on a track with technology to get to the point where they may achieve eternal life. But look at what the eternal life is going to look like. Look who's going to be running it. Yeah. Hell is starting to look like a literal thing that we create.
Yeah.
When you look at like Elon Musk's Neuralink stuff, and you're like, oh, like they might actually do this. They might find a way to upload and preserve consciousness and keep it alive. But what kind of a hell of a matrix will it be in? If all of those people who you see the compliers and the people who will throw their neighbors under the bus, if they just keep winnowing us out, we leave the system and they walk into it and become more malicious towards each other, and which is what happens in a governed society. Boy, I wouldn't want to live that eternal life. That looks like eternal death, and it looks a lot like. I always thought, like, how could a loving God send people to hell? But I'm like, oh wait, actually, like we kind of send ourselves to hell.
Yeah.
God's trying to stop it. Oh man, so many great comments and so many great questions here. Reliance and Trust always has great comments. Well, we have time for a couple more here, I think. Just say no to government. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it took me a long time to break outside of that. I've always been like, I grew up in a conservative family, and then I've always had kind of libertarian leanings, but for a long time I was still just believed the government needed to be fixed. But how do you fix the concept of using violence to take things from people or to impose values? That will never be right. It will never be good. Government cannot be good. Now, that doesn't mean that like your local government official can't do a good thing. That happens all the time. Governments do good things, but they are not good organizations, and they never will be. They can't be by nature. Like, that's like me saying, I'm going to go out and just start shooting at people. But I'll try to do it in a good way. It's like the very concept is morally reprehensible, and it just does not work. Stephanie wants to adopt us as her two new grandkids. You can adopt us if you like. Do the grandparent thing. Send us some cookies. The New Yorker next says, make an Instagram and live and woo-woo down the rabbit hole. I do have an Instagram for my personal thing. It's under Matt Hundley Music. I don't know if you want to share yours or not, but we don't have one for Sovereign Village. Well, actually, I did start to set it up, but it's like there's only so many social medias you can be on. I actually do really enjoy like the picture aspect of Instagram, but we're also trying to figure out ways to just take ourselves off of social media and to take all of us together to kind of move away from these ecosystems as much as possible. We want Sovereign Village Project, the website, sovereignvillageproject.com, to become a hub. Yeah. We're still figuring out how to do that because I'm not a web developer. Gabby's got a little more experience there than I do, but that's not our area of expertise. But we're going to try to make that kind of like our own little social media. Not really social media for everybody, but for this group.
Just a way to interact.
Well, we're at 58:02. Not that we have to end right on the dot, but we are trying to keep this pretty condensed. Okay, so tomorrow, if I can squeeze it in, we're going to do an after action review again. I'm going to do that every Monday where we go back and I'll make a short video. If there's questions I missed, I'll write them all down and I'll answer them.
Thoughts or...
Yeah, and any additional thoughts from the video, any clarification of anything I said. I think it'll just be a fun way to make sure we really hit all of the points that were covered in these live streams. And we'll keep talking about whether we want to do a live stream or a podcast for our more like trippy stuff, because that's fun. I know a lot of people here are like-minded, really enjoy going down the weird philosophical rabbit holes with us. So we'll try to set a time apart for that. We're trying to figure out, like with this channel and with our other ones, like, that content's very different than the gardening content. While it's all related in our minds, some people may just want the gardening content. Some people may want the political or the philosophical stuff. So we're trying to figure out how to separate those and where to combine them. And as always, we love feedback on that, and would like to know what do you want from us content wise too? Because again, this is a community, this is a project that we're kind of all doing together. So the more feedback, the better. All right, last few. Stephanie says, thanks for the community hour. Yep. New York Rednecks is bowing out. He's saying ciao. I think it's about time for us too. Did we miss anything?
No.
We got to get Holly to bed. She's snoring.
She's already snoring.
Say goodnight, Holly. All right, Holly said goodnight. Everybody, have a good one. Thank you for watching the live stream and participating. Everybody stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.